Nobody knows anyone else, ever. You will never, ever know me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Underrated Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about movies that we think are underrated or underappreciated or ones that have just slipped under the radar and passed most people by. I am Derek McDuff, one of your co-hosts, and with me as always are Ariel Ortiz and Alan Torres.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
And this week we have a special guest from the Can I Say Something podcast. Joining us is Damian.
What's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah,
No problem.
appreciate it,
Happy to
man.
be here. No problem.
So, thank you. So this week we are going to be talking about the Rules of Attraction, which was our guest pick. This is a 2002 kind of black comedy drama film directed by Roger Avery, based on the Bret Easton Ellis novel. Who is most famous for writing American Psycho, and this is kind of, a film that it plays. It's not set in the same universe, but it is. You do see some crossover of some familiar relations, aka the Bateman brothers. It stars James Van Der Beek, Shannon Sosserman, and Ian Somerhalder. But yeah, this was kind of at the time. Not really, pretty not very respected by the critics, I'll say. Let me see, 43% on Rotten Tomatoes. But over the years, it's kind of become a little bit of a cult classic, with kind of people reevaluating it. I saw a list by, I want to say it was Empire. It was, I think, 60-something movies the best movies you haven't seen yet, that also included the likes of Perfect Blue and what was the space movie with the Believe Bruh? Oh my god, I'm spacing on it.
Attack the Block?
Attack the Block, thank you. Yeah, Attack the Block and Perfect Blue were also on this list, so it's kind of among those other movies that we've covered. A lot of other movies that I really like are on that list, like Blue Valentine. But I figure to start us off, since you are the one who suggested this movie to us, Damian, why don't you tell us a little bit about your pick here?
Oh boy. So just getting into it. This is an early 2000s film starring, some teen stars from the WB. You got Jessica Biel from Seventh Heaven, James Van Der Beek from Dawson's Creek. You got a cameo from Jay Baruchel. I haven't seen this before we started recording. I was like, I haven't seen this in a long time, so I don't know if a lot of this stuff holds up in 2021. And the first 5 to 10 minutes is not great.
I was saying before we started, I start the movie and I'm like, oh man, what are you having us watch here, dude? But
it quickly, moves past all of that weird stuff of the supposed gang rape of Jessica Biel and Shannon Sosserman getting puked on while being recorded while having sex. That's not good. So let me just get all that out of the way. Lots of gay panic. You have Ian Somerhalder, hitting on everyone. And James Van Der Beek, and James Van Der Beek's like, ew. No, who's the guy that beat him up at the beginning?
The character's name is Mitch. I wasn't familiar with the actor.
Yeah, it was some jock or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that goes through that. If you get past the first 10 minutes, I think it is really, like you said, really underappreciated, underseen movie. It's obviously, Bret Easton Ellis. It makes, very, edgy stuff. So this is very much that early 2000s edgy stuff that, a lot of it doesn't fly today. Yeah, you notice in the background of a lot of the shots, it's a movie that's made up of a lot of moments. So a lot of the moments are, the background shots of what is this, cabinet of Dr. Caligaro in the TV of all of these different rooms. You have Nietzsche in the background, so it's very much of a very nihilistic movie, to be honest.
Yeah.
So upon rewatching, I was like, yeah, that first 10 minutes is really rough, but the rest of it, I think it pretty much does hold up after 15, 20 years.
Yeah, because you said this is the first time you've revisited it in a while, right?
Yeah. Probably the first time in about 15 years. Yeah. So go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to go on, but go ahead.
So it's just like I said, the moments in this movie. We'll talk about, I want you guys to mention some of your favorites, but it is, just these moments of Fred Savage in this really dark room. He in the cast list, I think he's called A Junkie Named Mark, and he's putting whatever heroin into his toe, and he puts the cigarette butt in his belly button while he plays the clarinet. It's just these like weird little moments at this movie. I feel like this movie gets elevated by. Sean smiling while pooping, that's a weird thing. The doctor saying it's toe tag time in Teenville again when they're training.
He's dead. He's dead. He's not breathing. I'm not dead. Dragons.
So it is just this, overall, I wouldn't say this is a great movie, maybe even not a good movie, but it's just made up of these really interesting, crazy moments that I think is worth the while. I think it's worth the watch.
Mm-hmm. No, for me, I think it is worth being considered underrated because, so for me, I watched American Psycho for the first time a year ago, exactly almost a year ago for my podcast, of the View Never Seen, and that was Alan's pick and one of Alan's favorites, and just going from that and to this one, you could definitely see and understand and like. Take more appreciation for this movie because the Bateman brothers are essentially like Sean Bateman is essentially what he could become Patrick Bateman, and this is probably one of the reasons why he could become Patrick Bateman. Like in American Psycho, you get that sense of like Patrick at one point he had to like care because he's just so sensitive weirdly towards the end and stuff like that, and he has this weird sensitivity, and then so coming to this one and seeing Sean Bateman, you're like, yeah, you could see that they're brothers, you could see like this twisted nihilisticness and self-absorption and stuff like that, but I think he's a lot bit better than Patrick Bateman, because I think he does actually care, but he's
not a murderer.
He's not a serial killer.
He's not a murderer yet. Well, Patrick Bateman, that's to be discussed who he is actually a murderer. But
actually put a little bit more of information on that because I'm a Bret Easton Ellis fan of his books.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you guys a little clues on that too.
I'm curious. I was excited to hear what you have to say about it, Alan, being a big fan.
But yeah, so like I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just going through it, I'm like, this is exactly rewatching American Psycho. Just the insanity of it, the freaking talk in the diner, and the guy that would later go on to play Sunshine in Remember the Titans. That's just straight out of like a club scene or them at a bar in American Psycho, like just him and his other his power broker friends and stuff like that, and like that one character kind of reminded me of one of the characters in American Psycho, one of his friends, of just like he's the one that they snort up cocaine in the bathroom or something, but yeah, and definitely like I liked it, seeing that kind of like different side of the coin of these two characters, whether it is supposed to be kind of canonically, like he mentions Patrick, thinking that Paul is Patrick when he calls on the payphone and stuff like that, and then he's like, my brother wired the money and stuff, and
there is a deleted scene where Patrick Bateman does appear.
I thought he wasn't, but it's not Christian Bale.
It's not. It's Casper. It's Casper Von Veen, the guy from Starship Troopers.
Oh yeah, gosh, that's not right.
It's weird. It's a little weird.
No, you can't replace Christian Bale.
No, he's just kind of doing a Christian Bale impression. It's like, Johnny Rico, what are you doing? Okay.
Yeah. But essentially, yeah, I think this is like kind of, I could see where it could go unappreciated. I think that actually the first 10 minutes reminded me, I haven't seen the movie, that's another one that I need to do on my podcast, of Requiem for a Dream, but there's similarities to what's her name's Lauren's experience, and then there's another scene in whether whichever one came first, for this one or Requiem.
Requiem is a tough watch, I'm gonna tell you that much.
Yeah.
It's
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, a date movie. But yeah, like so there's kind of like elements of that kind of era. I really would like to know which one came first because they were very much in the same vein.
I think Requiem came first because this is 2002, and Requiem I know it's late 90s. I want to say 98, 99, something like that.
Might be
Yeah.
2000.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah,
2000.
So definitely you get kind of vibes of that, with the drug use and then with that scene and stuff. And it took me a second to realize, oh, okay, they're going backwards like completely, like the whole year, like at the beginning of the year, essentially, or the school year. And yeah, like it was definitely a very entertaining watch. Like just crazy shit happens, and that's why I kind of like fell in love with American Psycho because you're like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
One of the scenes that I just really got a kick out of is like after he finds he bangs Lauren's girlfriend. Lauren like walks in on, or I mean roommate, and she walks in on him, and then he's like trying to. He first ends up in like a tent that's essentially like a tent that a kid would go and hide in. He's like just there like moping, and then he like comes out of the tent, and then he tries to like hang himself. That doesn't work out, and then like tries to kill himself on cold pill, cold medication, or no, tries to slice his wrists, and just the insanity and the absurdity of and definitely the macabre of that scene definitely reminded me of like the same vein of American Psycho. So just for it being like that kind of follow up, like even if it is just in essence a follow up, made me appreciate the movie a lot more.
Yeah, nice.
I did appreciate it a lot. I thought it was really interesting cinematography, like the way they would kind of like have either like backwards and forward stuff, like scenes would kind of replay backwards, and then you'd see how they got there, or like that one scene where it was like side by side, you see Shannon Saucerman and James Van Der Beek, and they're just kind of like walking towards each other, and you kind of see them meet up in the middle, and then it finally after they have that whole conversation, you're just watching them from both. It's almost like this is almost like a meet cute, but in a very fucking dark movie. And then it like kind of, and it goes to that wide shot. And I forget exactly what it was, but there was like something between them, and it's just like, oh, this is where you come together, or something like that. I was like, oh, it's clever. And then the credits run backwards, and it's kind of just playing with your perception. And then the last scene is kind of implies that like, oh, maybe the beginning that we saw didn't actually happen that way. It was completely different. Like all these characters' experiences were something different. And no, Alan, you'll get more into it, I'm sure. But like the way Bret Easton Ellis kind of plays with like you're not really sure what is going on and what's real and what's not. But yeah, I really dug it. I think James Van Der Beek is just like he's one of my favorite like actors who's just kind of broke out for being a teen heartthrob, but he kind of like thinks that's ridiculous, and like he makes fun of himself. Like he did all those when he became a meme, he's like, here's some more faces for you, and he did all these other reaction gifs, and he was on Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23 just playing a ridiculous version of himself, and I love that. But yeah, it's like you said, it kind of starts with like, oh shit, like it starts with like a date rape, and you're like, oh my god, like this movie, and all that stuff that's going on in the beginning, you're like, and it's a movie that I'm like, this is a good movie, but I feel like I understand why you hadn't seen it in 15 years, because this is like one of those movies I'm like, I'm not going to go back to the well for this one for a while. Like it's a movie you like enjoy, and you're like watching, like I took something from this, but like it's like Grave of the Fireflies, where it's like, I love Grave of the Fireflies, one of my favorite movies. I'm never going to watch that movie again in my entire life. And so I kind of got the same vibes here. But yeah, I generally did really enjoy it. There's some like trigger warning stuff, rape and suicide. And I thought it was interesting how they kind of played off like James Van Der Beek's kind of just like his like suicide that was just not really, he was just kind of seemed like not even like taking it that seriously. Versus like a very like actual, like traumatic one where, you have the girl who doesn't even have a name and nobody even kind of realizes like what happened to her. She's been the one writing James Van Der Beek these letters, and it's like really tragic, like, story about depression going on with her. And you see like kind of all the, like you had mentioned, all the things happening in the background, all the storyline that's been playing out and we didn't even notice. So it does touch on a lot of these big issues in a very interesting way that I think is at times really hard to watch, and it plays with like the tropes of a romantic comedy in like the same ways that like American Psycho plays with the tropes of like kind of a success story. It's like this is that kind of story, but really fucked up and dark and twisted. And I know that you said some stuff about like the gay panic stuff, and I kind of get that, but I feel like, especially for like a bi character at the time, like he was a pretty like Ian Somerhalder's representation was pretty solid. Like a lot of characters, you look at like Philip Seymour Hoffman in Boogie Nights, which came out around the same time, and he's kind of like, even though it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, he's great. It's kind of a character of a gay person. And even shows like Will and Grace at the time, like whenever a bi person would come up, they would be like, they would just dismiss their sexuality. They'd be like, bi, people don't exist. You're just gay in denial. And like, that's a show that's, supposedly like very forward thinking. But like for a movie that's 2002 to just be like, yeah, he's bi, and like everyone just kind of accepts that. I thought that was pretty ahead of its time. And I think a lot of things like that it was ahead of its time in some ways. Not in every way, I feel like the beginning not ahead of its time, but I do think that's why it's kind of developed this cult following over the years, is because stuff like that, and kind of like people can look back on it with this appreciation, because it did kind of, it was forward thinking in some ways like that. But yeah, Alan, I want to hear what you got to say. Our Bret Easton Ellis scholar over here, because I know that he did say this was like the best adaptation of one of his works. So
yeah, I actually read about that as well. This is the one book I haven't read yet, because I won't lie, Bret Easton Ellis does have a type of like prose where it's kind of sad to say, but when the first 10 minutes, I know you guys were like, oh my god, like it's kind of intense. For me, I was like, yeah, that's Bret Easton Ellis. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Like I just kind of like fell into it, and I was like, because I've read American Psycho, obviously, Glamorama, Lunar Park, I think Lesson Zero, but it's been a while. But and it's kind of funny though, because like as a fan, like you kind of see all the little Easter eggs here and there. They're not like the Marvel movies and stuff, but even like his style, you can see it all over the place, like hedonism, just like graphic sex, graphic violence, just drugs, alcohol, all that stuff, like smoking, and like. But what you guys were saying though about like being ahead of its time, is I do agree with that, because all his books, kind of like his big bangers, came out in like the late 80s, early 90s. So like I think Rules of Attraction came out maybe like 5-6 years prior. So he was already kind of like writing all these kinds of like ideas of like, because I think even he himself was very like in the closet, kind of like, oh, I'm kind of just my own thing. I'm not straight. I'm not gay. But like I think over time, like he himself kind of came out and was like, yeah, I am a gay man. And now he even kind of like plays with it. Like I follow him on his Twitter, and I even listened to his podcast a couple years ago. But yeah, like if you've seen American Psycho, you can see like the differences between Sean Bateman and Patrick Bateman. And it's so funny because like Sean Bateman actually does make a cameo in the American Psycho novel. Like they actually talk, and you get to see them together and interact, and they're vastly different, even though they're similar in a lot of ways, of just them like partying and not giving a shit, and they're kind of just trying to figure themselves out, even though Patrick's a serial killer kind of thing. And I think another cool little fact too was Victor. I know nobody's really touched upon him, but like he was Lauren's like boyfriend. I got the feeling that they weren't together, because he just seemed like he never gave a shit about her from the start. When you see that scene of him going like, I'm so sorry, but like I really don't know who the fuck you are, kind of thing.
I got the vibe that they went on like 3 dates or something,
Mm-hmm.
I actually got the vibe that like maybe they kissed and she thought, oh, we're dating.
Yeah.
Because it was just like it just seemed so like out of nowhere, but I was like, it sounds like it.
Yeah, and you could believe that because she's such like an innocent character,
That's interesting. I never caught that before. I've seen this movie a few times. It never occurred to me that maybe that wasn't a relationship that was real. That actually she was just more attached to him, and he was just, they maybe had sex a few times, and he was like, yeah, you're just one of a few. Sorry.
No, she was a virgin. But no, yeah, I definitely got that sense of just like her like most likely they went on a date, or they kissed or something the day before he went to Europe,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or he says I'll see you when I get back or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Alan, get back. What are you saying?
Oh yeah, but no, like the beauty about like Bret Easton Ellis' style is that like it's you have to keep reading or keep watching because you start noticing little things here and there. Where like one of the biggest things I've noticed with him and his novels is that he likes to do like stories where like there's really no beginning and or end. Like it just you're just kind of in the middle of it, just like this. Like it's just a bunch of people going to school, kind of thing, going, trying to figure themselves out and date. But there's also this thing of like massive lack of communication. Like there was times where it just seemed like Sean and Lauren, like at one point it seemed like they were in a relationship, and she's like, "It's over," and I was like, "When the fuck did it start?" Like you guys all of a sudden liked each other, and then now it's like it's over. You're done. Like you slept with Jessica Biel and stuff. And I was like, well, if anybody's actually communicating, it's Jessica Biel. Like everyone's like Paul's trying to get Sean's attention, but he's kind of just like being very coy and not being like straightforward. And like Sean's like oblivious up until the end of the movie, where he goes, "Yeah, I'm not going to be with you," and he says the same thing that Lauren tells him. Like there's always this thing of like lack of communication and kind of almost like people believe something's happening when it's not. Like with Lauren thinking that Victor is her boyfriend, like she's gonna get back with her boyfriend, even though it's like, well, we never really saw that. And like Sean's like, "Oh, I can't believe we're over," and it's like, well, nothing really happened. You kind of fucked up. You're on your own. But the same thing with like American Psycho, where people are kind of getting each other confused. Or they're like, "Oh yeah, I went out with Paul Allen the other day to Dorcia's or whatever," and then they're like, "What? Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I went out with him," and it's like that's how Patrick was able to get around and like people. But even then, you're still unsure. Like there's always that unsureness with Bret Easton Ellis stuff, and even the Victor character himself. He actually has his own book as well, and it's almost very similar themes. Where like I think it's after Rules of Attraction, like after his college years, and he becomes like a minor celebrity model, and sudden like he's getting followed around by like a camera crew and they're just random, and you're just kind of like, where the fuck did they come from, what's going on? And then there's this whole thing of like it's very like Zoolander-ish, where I don't know if you guys ever heard about the Glamorama Zoolander thing, where it's like models are becoming secret agents kind of thing, where they're like sleeper agents. And then it's that whole thing like, wait, am I a secret agent? Like where did this come from? I don't know. Like I feel like that's Bret Easton Ellis' thing of just trying to be like trying to even confuse the viewer, and kind of makes you want to rewatch it or reread to be like, holy shit, that's actually not even real. That's not even happening, or this isn't happening, or this is like. I think that's always the fun about series, especially with this one as well, because I was just sitting there going, "What? Like, wait, what the fuck? What?" And then I'm like, wait a minute. And I had to rewind it a couple times to backtrack and be like, oh. All right, now I'm kind of getting into the mind of like story and stuff, but I recommend it. I think it's a great watch, especially if you're a Bret Easton Ellis fan. But I will say the one scene I did not like, and it was unbearable to watch, was the scene with Dick.
I knew you were going to say that. I thought that was the most like it. I thought,
my God, no! I was just like, dude, just leave the table, like stop.
That reminded me of my brother just like drunk on a cruise. I was just like, this is a little too real. Like I felt pulled. I was like, that was the only time I was like, this is something from my real life that I've experienced.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I was like, fuck, maybe I've been that guy. Drunk at the table and I'm acting a fool. So I was like, maybe I relate to this a little too much.
I thought that was like, it gave me senses of like if Patrick Bateman like got unhinged and like stuff like him just fucking yell. Like I could see that Dick character also running down the hallway with a chainsaw, wearing tighty whities and white Nikes. Yeah.
But I like that scene because it's just so kind of like out of nowhere, and I feel like they do that a lot in the movie, where it's just like, here's just something going on, and you're like, what does this have to do with anything? And it just kind of like messes with your perception as an audience member, which is what I think the whole point of this movie is, to just give you all these different angles and make you question like what you see and have weird endings, and that kind of ties into, I think, one of the major themes of the film, which is just like you can never really know another human or understand them. Like that's kind of like where the movie ends, and it's like it has the two main characters kind of saying that to each other, And that's something, you hear people all the time saying like, oh, I live with this person and I didn't even know them, or like, somebody like, was like, oh, like they left me for this person and I don't understand. Like this is like, oh, this is a different person. You can never really 100% know people, and people like see someone they get attracted to, like the title, the rules of attraction, and you kind of project what you want to see onto these people. Like everybody's kind of projecting onto James Vanderbeek, like this, classic good old American boy when he's kind of like a sociopath, in the same way that, the way he kind of projects on the Shining Saucerman is just kind of this like pure virginal character, and he's like, it's interesting how conflicted he is, because he's like, oh yeah, like I'm attracted to her because she's just like this pure virgin, but he also like wants to have sex with her, which would kind of like destroy this illusion that he's built up in his mind. And just like the way that she kind of perceives him, and the way she definitely perceives Victor is definitely just like all in her mind. Like she's like, oh yeah, Victor, if I was with Victor right now, like I was losing my virginity, it would be so different and tender and stuff like that. And in reality, he's off like in Europe, just like taking drugs and getting venereal diseases and like just doing all this horrible stuff. So I think that was something that was just like a through line of the whole movie. It's like, yeah, you don't really, like, no matter what, like as much as you like know another person, and I'm like not trying to like be cynical or anything here, more than the movie is, because I think the movie, that is kind of the underlying message of the movie, is like you can never be in somebody else's head. You can never like understand what they're feeling and what their thoughts are, and you kind of do. That's why people all the time talk about like, are you in love with them, or are you in love with like the idea of them? And I think that this movie does a really good job of just kind of like putting you in that mindset, because you switch back and forth between the perspectives of the different characters, and just kind of like see how they see each other, and you see that the reality is polar opposite of that in so many cases.
Yeah, to that point, there was so many throwaway lines in this movie. When Jessica Biel and James Vanderbeek are having sex, and they finish, and she rolls over and very quietly says, "I was born in a Holiday Inn." And I was just like, "Holy
Yeah.
shit!"
Yeah, I was like, I was waiting for her to continue. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's it. Oh, okay.
So that really speaks to the, you really don't know people that well, or you can't really know anyone completely in life. And then so many great lines in this movie where Sean says to Lauren, "Since when does fucking someone else mean I'm not faithful to you?" It's like,
Or like, I only had
cracked me
sex
the
with her
hell
because I'm in
up.
love with you. Like
Yeah.
that's such a like insane, stupid, brilliant line. Like so it's just like, okay.
Yes. I want to get back to the Richard and Paul scene, like that whole, he's drunk at the table, and you have Faye Dunaway and Swoozie Kurtz at the table, and again, all these throwaway lines are just like Faye Dunaway says something like, "You want some?" And she's like, "What are they? Does it matter?" Like, and then just the again, that Victor scene. What did you guys think of the Victor montage? This is one of my favorite scenes in just a movie in general, of just flying through Europe. I think the director talked about this, where he sent Kip Pardue through Europe, following him with a camera, and Kip like stayed in character throughout the entire trip throughout Europe. They went to 12 cities, and they filmed it on a Sony PD 150. And he told Kip, quote, "I would have 24/7 access, no matter how intimate the situation, with no script, the loosest of plans. I tracked Victor as he partied across Europe in the shell-shocked weeks following 9/11. That was the thing, too. This movie was like shot like the week of 9/11, and like James Vanderbeek was trapped in LA, I think. And he goes, "We would be raving with Paul Oakenfold one day in Dublin, and then at a Ford model party in Paris the next. 5 minutes into a conversation with, say, an heiress or a model, I would stop shooting, explain who we were, that Victor was actually the actor Kip Pardue, and that we were shooting a scene for my latest film. The only other crew member, Academy Award-winning producer Greg Shapiro, would then step forward and get them to sign a waiver, and Victor would proceed." So it was just this crazy, manic, like 2-week excursion through Europe. Didn't really know what they would get, and this was actually made into I think you mentioned Glitterati. That's the movie that he made. He would go on to make later, like a little short film, I think, of all the.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's what he made from that. So yeah, that was an incredible scene. And then just going back to the thing of this movie again, you're right, Derek. That is a major theme of the movie, is like you don't know anybody, and I do love it for that. But also, I love it for just the little moments of just going back to the quotes of like, he's not ODing. Freshmen don't OD. just all these little moments I love catching in the background. And so I don't know if you guys have seen this movie before, but did you like see the girl that was attracted to Sean throughout it, and did like you have to go back and be like, oh, she was there. I never saw her there. Did you guys catch that throughout the movie or no?
I just saw it from
before.
the beginning, that beginning part where he dumps the tray and stuff like that, and then I mean like and the only reason I knew it was her because like I was watching it on Amazon and I kind of like paused it at that time when she's like killing herself, and then her on Amazon, if you watch it on a tablet or something, it like says the characters' names, whoever's in the scene, and it said like girl, lunch, I think it's like lunch lady girl or lunch, and I was like, oh okay. But I think like I wouldn't that and then going back and stuff like that of I wouldn't be surprised if when I rewatch it eventually that I'll see her like in the background and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I saw like them like they're like, okay, they show you all the scenes and you're like, I didn't even notice that, but like I'm like, I think she was in there. Like I'm like it feels like, oh, like deja vu, like, oh, she was there, like, oh man, and like I haven't gone back and rewatched it but since then, but like I'm like, okay, yeah, that's, and it's just like one of those things where it's like right there in front of you and you don't even notice it.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect example right there. Like she was right there and Sean didn't notice her as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I love the Victor scene, the like hopping around Europe. I loved it because like I was like, wait, is this the same Victor from Glamorama? I think it's very similar, and then I kind of looked it up and it was him. I guess Ellis just changed the last name later on because I guess when he becomes a celebrity, he's like, I'm Victor Ward now, not Victor Johnson or something. But total prequel. But if anything, it kind of felt like it would have fit that world as well, because with Victor's character in Glamorama, like halfway through the novel, this just team shows up and just starts following him, and you're just like, who the fuck are these guys? So it kind of fit in that sense of like precursor to the Glamorama book as well. So I just dug it, and then I read up on that too, like what you said, that they were trekking around Europe, and I was like, damn, I kind of wish I could see the behind the scenes of that scene as well. Just like, did he really go ham? Did he go party with everybody? Did he like sleep with random people? Did he get mono? Like that part cracked up. He's like, I think this girl gave me mono. But anyways, I rode a Ferrari.
No, yeah, that scene was just insane, and like a lot of like with American Psycho and this, it's just like there's so many like different like, okay, now we're doing this kind of thing with it, and I was like and then in the middle of it, I'm like, did they actually go through Europe? Like really? And stuff like that? Because I mean, it's definitely like they filmed it and stuff, but it's nice to say, like, I would have believed, like, oh yeah, he went, full ham with it, but it's nice to hear at least that they like stopped, like whoever they met said, hey, we're doing this thing, he's going to be in character, do you want to play along? And it wasn't like like kind of like a twisted Borat kind of situation, but
because when I was watching, I was like, Paul Oakenfold, because I'm like a fan of his, so I was just like, I was like, did they just run into him when they were shooting? So I was like curious about that, so that was really interesting. But what I think that scene does really well is like, it's so like it's just so much happening, it's like so just over the top, and then just keeps going and going and going, like for like 5 straight minutes. It felt like, I don't even know how long it was, but like you start to get numb to it, but like it's just all these ridiculous things keep happening, and you're just kind of like, oh, that waits you just kind of like be like, this is just his life, and you just kind of like start accepting it and just like, yeah, and then you did what now, and what now? It's like all these ridiculous things keep building up, but it's just been happening for so long that you're just like, all right, whatever. And it's weird that he could just like just like make you that affected by it in such a short amount of time, because it's just so rapid fire. Because I've seen other movies that do similar things, but not for that amount of time where you just like start to even tune out by the end of it.
Yeah. It's just like, I shit my pants, went back, jerked off, had sex with this woman, got a drink at the Guinness factory. It's so good, it made my dick hard. It was just like, what the fuck? One guy we haven't talked about was Clifton Collins, the drug dealer. Every scene he was in, I was just like, man,
oh yeah.
Now what's gonna happen now? The first scene where he's just like, hey man, I'm just gonna here pick up some stuff. And he's like, where's my money? And just the karate thing to his face. And he was saying how he couldn't get James Vanderbeek to like actually look scared. So he had the whole karate thing was sort of improv. It's just, every scene with him was just like, what is going on? And just all these little like characters in the background, like the Jamaican guy reading porn in the side, and just some woman sitting there just doing whatever. It's like, what? There's so much going on. I can't even keep up. Again, it's just these little touches in the background just really make this movie what it is.
Yeah, and then with that, so for that actor, he's just such a chameleon. He's a very underrated chameleon. But so I just wanted to say, yeah, my first experience with him is in a very, very Mexican movie called The Wonderful Ice Cream Suit. I don't know, Al, if you know this, but yeah. But
No, I never heard of it.
it's a very like East LA Mexican. And he's very an innocent person in that movie. So all these iterations, of this. So he's played some other crazy, batshit crazy characters. He was in freaking the first Star Trek when it came back. He was like Nero's second in command. But like all these.
Okay, yeah, I was like trying to figure out who he fucking was in that movie because like I saw him come up in the IMDb and it's like, who is he in Star Trek? And I'm like, now that you like say, okay, like he's just like Captain Nero, just. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'll recognize him everywhere. But yeah.
And Pacific Rim is what I recognized him from because he's the guy in the wheelchair or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and it's just like his performance is just so out there and over the top, and then like he's like at the same time like the classic like drug dealer, but then he also like throws in lines of like I used to do this to men in the army, and then like I would twist your hand, you wouldn't if I twist your hand here, you wouldn't be able to hold your weapon and stuff like that. He's like, well, I'm not in the army, and that's why I'm not gonna do it, or something like that. Yeah.
It's like I need you like an asshole on my elbow.
Yeah, a lot of really good character actors in this film, I feel like, and a lot of kind of like teen stars, like former child stars. When I was just like, is that fucking Fred Savage? Like I was like, okay, and then of course, you have James Van Der Beek, who's very famous for being the wholesome Dawson, and have this kind of like starlet who people thought were gonna, I guess, she was gonna do big things, but never really panned out. Shannon Sossaman, who we've talked about before on A Knight's Tale, who I had a big old crush on because that's kind of definitely like my type right there.
Always shows up in that freaking like hat, like that type of hat that she wears in this movie.
She always wears that hat.
Yep.
Yeah.
She always wears the jean skirt.
Yeah.
Jean skirt. I swear, every film she's in, she has to wear it.
Even when it's medieval, like in the
But yeah, I was looking for it in A Knight's Tale. I was like, it's there somewhere.
You had Thomas Ian Nicholas from American Pie, Kate Bosworth from Superman Returns and the classic 21.
And then, of course, Ian Somerhalder, who would go on to be on, my favorite show, Lost, and then eventually The Vampire Diaries, where he really got famous for that role.
Yeah. Yep.
It was like, it's weird because he's like baby. He's like, I was like, oh, little wee Ian Somerhalder. He was so young in this.
Yeah, I was like, he does not age. Like,
he's got that Paul Rudd thing.
Diary was like, like almost like a decade after this. Like, so yeah.
Yeah.
Like a vampire.
He is a vampire.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think he has the vibes of like the second like Keanu Reeves in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Yep. So just one more thing, I had like a little factoid. The part where Lauren goes to see Victor at the door, and Kit Perdue is like, when they come to the door, Jessica Biel was brushing her teeth, and I asked her to give me a little bit of her spit. He also points out that when he can't see it, he's actually not wearing pants in the scene per Shannon Sossaman's request. To quote, I was kind of into it. So there's that. Yep.
Random.
What? Sorry, what scene?
When Lauren goes to meet Victor when he comes back, and he's like, I don't know who you are, sorry. And there's a woman in the backseat. Yeah, so he was what's her name? Jessica Biel was brushing her teeth, and Kip asked her to give him some of the toothpaste. That's what's on his mouth. If you notice, there's like some weird stuff in his mouth. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Makes a lot of sense. All right.
Yeah.
Well, any other final
I thought
thoughts,
it was
guys?
probably like drugs or something.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it
that's kind of what I was
looked
thinking. I thought it was Coke.
No,
Yeah.
for a second I was like, "Is that toothpaste? Like, is he?" Because it was like,
Yeah.
or like, or something more bodily.
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Some bodily fluids. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. Any final thoughts, guys, before we wrap up on this movie? This backwards, trippy.
No, definitely. If you are a fan of American Psycho, definitely watch this movie. I mean, you definitely get the vibes of like why these two characters are related. But also like like a different, different kind of type of a Bateman, and very very much that way. And yeah, if you just want an insane like trippy movie, also, so I recommend it for that reason.
I was gonna ask, did you guys, anybody else watch the deleted scene with Patrick Bateman in it?
No.
I'm not gonna watch it. Like, no, because
It's
Christian Bale
weird.
is Patrick Bateman. Like,
It's
you cannot.
it's interesting because it's just like, it's like when you see like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, or not Tom Holland, like what's his name, not Tobey Maguire, the other guy,
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield is just like, this isn't quite right, like, no offense to Andrew Garfield, but I'm like, no, you're not Spider-Man, and it's just kind of like the same way. It's like, oh yeah, like Casper Van Dien, you're not Patrick Bateman, but it's interesting to see like, Patrick Bateman in this world, because he's still like, it cuts to him and you go to his internal monologue and he's just like, I thought, like, he's like I thought of murdering somebody and then I put on my skin cream. It's like, oh yeah, it's like the same Patrick Bateman, and he's just like, he talks to the receptionist and he's like, bring me like an Aquafina or something, and they kind of, there's that back and forth. So I was like, I get why you cut this out, but it was kind of like a nice little extra to kind of like tie it into American Psycho, even though I know they're not the same continuity. But I was like, it was kind of just like okay, this is an interesting like little artifact. But yeah.
No, but can I give appreciation to James Van Der Beek very much nailing like the Patrick Bateman like stare and face, like when he gets intense and when he thinks about like murder.
Yeah,
So, but yeah.
I definitely dug that a lot too. Like I was like, you know what? I really, really wished Christian Bale was able to come back just to do a quick little snippet.
Yeah, he didn't want
Patrick Bateman, because
it would have been awesome.
I would have loved it.
Yeah.
Because they really, I feel like they would have been really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably nowadays he would have been like, oh, I should have done it. But like, I mean, if you do want more Patrick Bateman, I would suggest, reading the books, because he kind of jumps around. Like he has his little cameos. Like he also does show up in Glamorama at like a big Hollywood party, and he has like a barbecue. Well, it looks like barbecue sauce stain on his suit, and someone goes, "Hey man, like you got like food on your, like a stain on your suit," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, sure, whatever you say." And like he shows up in Rules of Attraction and even Lunar Park. Like he kind of jumps around, so he's kind of like the little connection between Bret Easton Ellis's little universe kind of thing.
And I love stuff like that, like how, if you watch, like I was kind of talking, a while ago with Ariel about this, how you watch like I, Robot, and then you watch like Bicentennial Man, which are both based on Isaac Asimov stuff. Like, even though those movies have nothing to do with each other, they'll both be like, oh, like the 3 laws of robotics, and that's something that kind of is like a through line through all of, the robot works that, Asimov wrote. And so it's nice that when you kind of have that like little connection there. But yeah, I think I would recommend this movie to anyone who is an actual film fan. If you're not like a big cinephile like we are, I don't think you'll enjoy this. I think that it is kind of requiring you to like kind of know like the tropes and the stuff, how cinema works, to kind of like appreciate it. Otherwise, it's just going to be like, what is this? But if you are a fan of cinema, definitely check this out. I would say.
I think if you want a crazy ride,
Yeah, completely agree that it's for cinemaphiles like us. Yeah, it's just like I kept saying, it's about those moments. I think those moments make the movie what it is. I don't think anybody mentioned Eric Stoltz was in this movie as just a pervy professor.
I knew, dude. I was like, I've seen that guy, and I couldn't figure it out. And then I was kind of like, oh, she's just gonna blow him, okay. And then I was
that's okay.
Yep, that's him.
I only recognize the back of his head in the wide shots.
Yeah. And she's in that room, like she goes to his class and starts smoking his weed with like a little forceps or whatever. Just these weird little moments in these scenes make this movie so great. So yeah, I would actually agree with all of you. I would recommend it for that overarching theme of you don't really know anybody and everybody's just fucking thinking about themselves and thinking about getting laid sometimes and doing drugs or whatever. Not everyone's like that, but a lot of times you just got to realize that people are just probably not thinking about you as much as you think they are. I think that's a really great thing to take away from this movie. Yeah, great cast, great scenes. I would recommend anyone just watch that Victor scene, the Victor montage, one of my favorite moments in that movie. So yeah, I love this movie, and I'm glad you guys liked it too.
Yeah. Thank you for introducing it to us, because I had a really good time with it. But yeah, before we wrap up, Damian, you want to mention your show and plug your stuff and what you're doing?
Yeah, so do a general, what we've been watching. It's called Can I Say Something? It's on all of the where you get your podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all of that stuff. We do it weekly. You're going to be on it this week. We're going to talk about the best stuff that we've seen this year so far. And then I believe the Turtle Stack, my appearance on the Turtle Stack hasn't been put up yet, but I did a little, like I told you a couple weeks ago, little, love to the MCU, which was a podcast about everything, what are you passionate about? Come on and talk about, for 20, 30 minutes. Tell us what you're passionate about. And of course, I went off for 20, 30 minutes on the MCU and all that good stuff. So check out the Turtle Stack. Should be out in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it should be out by the time, because we're recording this a bit ahead of time because we're in the middle of our sequel series. So yeah, by the time this comes out, those should all be up.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you everybody out there for listening. Go ahead and listen to Damian, and then go ahead and if you liked this episode, go ahead and subscribe to us here. We have a new episode on a different underrated film every other week. So subscribe to us. And then Ariel also has her show, which is called You've Never Seen, which we kind of mentioned at the top. That's going to be talking about. Yeah, if you want to introduce Ariel.
If you liked Rules of Attraction, go back and listen to the American Psycho episode of You've Never Seen. It was our first one, so it might be a little choppy compared to our newer episodes, but yeah, definitely get our at least my hype of how much I enjoyed that movie also. Yeah,
that was fun. But yeah, and then if you guys you have any suggestions for any underrated movies you want to see us cover, you can, follow us and let us know on Instagram. Our Instagram is Undercast Company, and then or email us at undercastcompany@gmail.com, or, follow us on Facebook, all the socials, hit us up, let us know what you want to see. But yeah, we have been the Undercast Company with our guest Damian, so thank you out there, everybody, and I'll see you in another life.
Thanks for being amazing.